Hello, my name is Robert Mall, Deputy Superintendent for Financial and Business Services. As you know by now, the Volusia County School Board on June 26th approved a resolution to place a 1 mil tax referendum on this year's ballot on November 6th. That was further approved by the Volusia County Council on July 12th. I think it would be important at this time for me to give you as much information as I can to help you make an informed decision. I think it's important at this time to understand the reasons why the school district is seeking this 1 mil resolution. And if you look at the center, we can see that there are 4 issues that are going to be affecting next year's budget. Now we're talking about 2014. 4 issues are class size, non-recurring funds, the expiration of the quarter mil, and the capital transfer. As you know, this year, unfortunately, we had to delete 247 classroom teaching positions from the budget. That was unfortunate because at that time we simply did not have enough funds to balance our budget. So we will need to bring back many of those positions if we are to be in class size compliance with the constitutional amendment. The non-recurring funds is an issue that we have faced in the last 2 years because of the one-step increase that was given to all employees. Because we utilized non-recurring funds for that purpose, those funds, if we don't have another source for funding, will not be covered in the 2014 budget. So we were able to cover those non-recurring funds in school year 2012 and school year 2013. Currently, as part of the 1 mil that the board is seeking, we are now paying a quarter mil on our property taxes, which is already there and is set to expire in June of 2013. Without the additional 1 mil, the quarter mil would automatically expire. The capital transfer, even though it's somewhat difficult to explain, I will try my best. Currently, capital funds can only be used for a specific purpose, which is furnitures, fixtures, and equipment, brick and mortar, school buses, and technology. We are permitted by law to transfer a certain amount of maintenance funds from our capital fund to our general fund as long as we can meet the needs of our capital funding. However, at this point in time, we really do have to reverse that capital transfer if we are to meet the needs of the capital fund. So therefore, that capital transfer can no longer take place at the level that it is taking place. Those are the 4 major areas that we must focus in on regarding the 1 mil. Now, as you look on the outer circles, we can see that there are many other issues that we will still be facing. Rising pension costs, declining property value, lower student enrollment. We thought that this past year that would start gaining momentum again, and unfortunately for school year 2013, the student enrollment has declined. So that is a continuing concern. The additional charter schools, if we have any additional charter schools, those funds would have to be transferred to additional charter schools. Our federal grants, even if the 1 mil does not pass, the federal grants reduction is probably going to be a certainty. Congress right now is in the midst of what we call sequestration, and they are seeking many ways in order to cut the national deficit. And federal grants will, in all likelihood, be affected, and it is estimated that Volusia County could face anywhere between 15 and 20% in grants funds reductions. That is Title I, IDEA, and any other grants that we have. Senate Bill 736, pay for performance, that will continue to be an issue in future years as we move into the different salary schedules that we will have to create for those who will be eligible. And of course, pension costs continue to be a concern. The state has indicated that they do have a large unfunded liability, so therefore the pension costs will continue to rise. The other areas that you see are really not areas necessarily directed at Volusia County. However, when we look at state funding, If the state has issues with some of these concerns that you see, then certainly they will pass that on to their budgets. So when we talk about the state of the economy and continued high unemployment and Medicaid costs and even the European crisis and high foreclosures, we are looking at issues that could definitely affect the Florida budget and therefore affect school budgets. And finally, the never-ending rise in our health insurance costs are always a concern, and we have to be constantly vigilant for those costs that continue to rise. Now let's take a look at our funding since 2007 and 2008. 2008 is seen to be the year of the Great Recession in the United States. And as you can see, our base funding from the Florida Educational Finance Program, which is all general funds, that came to Volusia County was $463.1 million. If you look at 2012, 2013, you can see that we have dropped all the way down to $383 million. In the center of these years, in 9, 10, and 10, 11, we had our federal funds, our stabilization and stimulus funds, that really propped up our budget, and those funds were used primarily to hire teachers. If you look at the yellow areas once again highlight our quarter mill, which has been in place for the last 4 years. And you can see that we've had a high of $8 million to a low of $6.3 million where we're currently at in terms of the value of that quarter mill. That is the quarter mill that will expire in June of 2013. The district cost differential, the DCD, is a calculation that the state makes with all school districts throughout the state of Florida. And essentially what it is that the state tries to equalize the various costs of living from district to district. And years ago, prior to 2004, the district was pretty much holding its own with market basket analysis. In other words, a container of milk, a gallon of gasoline, the cost of utilities in a home, all of those different services and expenditures that an average family would have. The state would use all of those and develop a cost of living from district to district. However, in 2004, they added the wage index. And what that did was it put Volusia County really at a disadvantage compared to other districts. Many of the individuals that travel on a daily basis on I-4 or I-95 to their jobs, when they go to those jobs and earn their salaries, those salaries are credited to the county of employment, not to the county of residence. As a result, the wage index disproportionately affects Volusia County. And you could see as a result of that, that over the years, Volusia County has lost $97.5 million. Now, if I came to you and I said, I'm an investment advisor and I can take $1,000 that you have right now, and at the end of the year, I'll return $965 back to you. Well, you would see that that's not a very good investment. And what occurs with the district cost differential is that for every $1, the district is penalized 3.5 cents. So we really get only 96.5% or cents back on that dollar. And over the course of time, as you can see, Volusia County has lost the maximum amount of funds of any other district. We are the biggest losers in the state. There are other districts that do contribute to this, and as you can see by this chart, that the districts that are in red are the districts that suffer losses because of the DCD, and the districts in black are the districts that gain additional funds. And you can see that these are the large districts, the Broward, the Colliers, Duvals, Hillsborough, Lee, Miami-Dade, Orange, Palm Beach, and Pinellas. These are the districts that in the redistribution process of the state take the funds that they took from the other districts that had a lower DCD and redistribute those funds to the districts with the higher DCD. The school district back in 2004 actually took the Florida Senate all the way to the Supreme Court because it felt that this method of calculation was very unfair, especially to a coastal community like Volusia, and the Supreme Court did rule in favor of the Senate. So the district cost differential really did not change from that point. So we are really suffering with the loss of those funds, and we truly believe that this is something that continues and needs to be addressed in the Florida House and Florida Senate, and we'll be working on that. But once again, this is a clear example of how Volusia County continues to lose funds in comparison to many other districts. And you could see that our neighboring district, Seminole County, lost $17 million over that 10-year period, and Volusia County lost $97 million. So we lost $80 million more dollars than Seminole County. Now, a lot of individuals indicate, well, if Volusia County has lost students and we're on a decline since 2008, why shouldn't the revenue be in decline? And we're in agreement with that. However, if you look at the 4.6% loss of students during that period of time, the revenue loss is almost 4 times that amount, which is 17.3%. So we feel the loss is definitely not proportionate to the loss of students. We lose a lot more funds than we've lost in terms of the number of students. The deficit projections for 2013-14, this takes us back to the first slide that I showed you with the various circles in that elliptical chart. And the center of that chart was the actual red bullseye, where I talked about the class size amendment, the non-recurring funds, the committed fund balance, the expiration of the quarter mill, and the capital transfer amount. When you look at the 12 million, the 5 million, the 6 million, and the 2 million, we come up with a projected deficit for 2013-14 of 25 million. That is the amount that we're looking at as a minimum, because all of those other issues on that elliptical chart really are not included in this. So if we have any spikes in rising fuel costs or utility costs or pension costs, that would only add to the deficit for 2014. Now let's take a look at what all of these numbers affect, how they affect each student. As you know, the state gives us money based upon student population. If we look back at July 2007, we would see, based upon that other chart that I showed you with the total dollars from that period of time, we could see that each student generated $6,992. Now, as we go forward all the way to where we are currently in fiscal year 2013 and where we could be in the following year, we could see that there has been a steep decline in the per-pupil funding that we have received from the state. Once again, we started out at $6,992, gradually decreased. Then in July of 2009 and July of 2010, we had all of the stabilization and stimulus dollars from the federal government. In addition to that, on the green bars, you could see what our quarter mill generated for each student. So in 2009, 2010, we were pretty much holding our own and not too much below the high of 2007. But with each succeeding year, the numbers continue to drop. In July of 2011, we had a really big drop, and we went to $6,049 per student with our $105 additional for the quarter mill. That was a year when the entire state was reduced by over $1 billion. Then the $1 billion was added back in the last school year, and we went back up to the $6,229, and our quarter mill reduced slightly. Now we're taking a look at that red arrow, and that is what we really need to concentrate on, because if we remained exactly where we are next July, then basically we're not making any moves at all. Our quarter mill is gone, and our expenses obviously will rise, and so will our deficit. So if nothing happened this year with the millage increase, then we would stay where we are, and the state, if they kept us exactly where we are, we would only be at $6,229 with no change. If we go with the following bar all the way to the right, and we look at the 6,229 and add the additional funds that we would generate with the 1 mil, we would receive another $412, and we would at least come up to a level that keeps us fairly much with our head above water, and if there are not too many other increases, we can continue to survive with the programs and services that we have right now. But even in July 2013, that with the 1 mil, that still doesn't take us all the way back to July of 2008. Now let's take a look at the 6 years of FTE measures we've taken. Now an FTE, once again, is a measurement that we use for personnel and also for students, but for personnel, we're talking about 1 8-hour employee or 1 7.5-hour teacher. All of these numbers would reflect our full and part-time staff. So when we're looking back at 2007, 2008, we're looking at a total loss of FTE of 250.2. It really topped out in 2008-9 when we lost 659.4. And all of these cuts were necessary with each succeeding year as we look to balance our budget. Now, if we looked all the way to the right, we would see our totals, 1,908 FTE, and we would know that if we're talking full and part-time, that the 1,908 really does not truly reflect the number of people that we have actually lost, because you could essentially have a 4-hour paraprofessional. So if you have 2 4-hour paraprofessionals, that would be 1 FTE. So when we're adding in our full and part-time employees, the number of actual people, headcount, that we have lost in this district is a lot higher than the 1,908.9. And let me just add that whenever we lose people, not only do we lose a great resource for our school district, but the school district is also responsible for 26 weeks of unemployment insurance for each employee that we lose. Now, this chart basically is a summary of what I just showed you. Over the course between fiscal year 2008-2013, you could see on the left-hand side the number of teachers we've lost, support staff, school administrators, and central office. And on the right-hand side, you could see the percentage of those losses. This is not the percentage of that category, it's the percentage of losses in that category over that period of time. So that with the teachers, it's been 51.2%. The second highest was central office, 25.6%, support staff, 21.8%, and school administrators, 1.4%. Now, what would this property tax calculation cost in terms of the 1 mil? Currently, if you look on the left-hand side at the property value, and the property value has been affirmed by the property appraiser's office for this year, an average property in Volusia County currently is $103,523. When you apply the homestead exemption of $25,000 and you have your taxable value, the additional tax for that property for 1 year would be $19.63. It would generate $6.4 million per year for the school district. That would also amount to, per household, $1.63 a month or 5 cents a day. Now that is where we currently are. Currently, all eligible taxpayers in Volusia County are paying that amount. In the second column, since we're asking for 1 mil, we're looking at an additional 0.75. So once again, we take the same property, same homestead exemption, same taxable value, multiply that millage, and that would be an additional increase of $58.89 for the year, generating $19.2 million per year for the district, $4.91 a month for that property, 16 cents a day. When you take those two columns and add them on the far right, that is the additional tax liability for each of those properties at $78.52 a year, $25.6 million generated for the school district, $6.54 per month, and 22 cents a day. Now, a lot of individuals have a perception that perhaps administration generates the highest amount of expenditures in the district. And again, you can see that the school district in the inverted pyramid, it clearly shows that 72% of our operating budget is going to instructional and instructional support services, with 13% for operation and maintenance, 7% for school administration, pupil transportation, which is a categorical, is 4%, and our district administration is 4%, right at the bottom. I want to thank you for your attention, and I recognize that a lot of times when people are presented with a lot of numbers, it could be overwhelming. I do want to emphasize that these are numbers that are justified within our budget, and I want to emphasize also that the 1 mil is an essential part of what we're looking at for the future of our schools in Volusia County. I'm not here to indicate to anyone how to vote. I think it's a decision that has to be made by you and each taxpayer. And we do have additional information on our website, which is on our homepage. And it is a website called Great Schools Sustain Great Communities. And essentially, I want to end up by saying, this is your schools and your decision. And I want to thank you for the time you've given.